Wait a second, I've lost it. There we go. I am just having trouble with the clickies today. Okay, welcome to Unprinted Pages with our wonderful friend Rasty Slasher. This particular episode, we are actually interviewing him about his new stuff that's coming out, his Silence's Crimson 2, Homecoming, and he has a short story in the new anthology Dark Dreams, Letting in the Night, Got You Where I Want You. And we are going to explore that and any other wonderful thoughts he has in his head because I've enjoyed exploring them so far. So, welcome back to the show.
Thank
How
you
are
very
you
much.
doing?
I'm not doing too bad. I've been missing you though. Like I did Unprinted Pages with you there for just a lot of episodes. Then with haunt season and everything, I kind of had to just disappear for a little while.
Well, that's okay. With everything that's been happening with everybody's schedules, we turned it into Corpse Garden Chronicles for the time being until recently. And now I've been able to have more authors agree to come join.
Nice.
So,
It was amazing.
and with you being the first one when we're back, that is awesome. So finally, you have got Silence's Crimson 2 Homecoming done, ready to publish on the 31st.
Yeah, that's something I never thought would happen. If I'm being completely honest with you, I really thought this story would die after the first one, with everything that we went through, the filming, and just a lot of stuff. So like the fact that
Oh,
it's
yeah.
actually going to be out and viewable in 5 days is pretty amazing to me.
And guys, I've read it 3 times now through its different stages. I recommend it. And I definitely think you should see what happens with the band getting back together to go against everybody's favorite enemy, the trans-dimensional monster that's inside Riker that
Yeah.
has decided he has an idea of what a gender is, which I thought was interesting. That whole conversation, that was great.
So yeah, that conversation is born off of a conversation that you and I had actually.
Mhm.
It would not exist, in fact, without the conversation we had about gender representation. Because
Mhm.
for a while, I didn't think a lot about whether the creature itself, was male, female, transgender, or if it even really had a gender at all. Like maybe, it's hard to explain with that because you think a Lovecraftian creature, you're not even sure if their species is like so evolved or de-evolved to the point where that's not even in question. Like gender isn't even something that they understand. So I got to explore that a little bit in this book. I didn't want to do it like too on the nose and make it like a big focal point, but I did want to make sure that it was discussed, like that there was at least an actual discussion about that. It felt important.
Yeah. It was a good discussion. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Lola. Now I'm curious about what type of birded creatures it would have over there to have feathers on. But yeah, that was fun.
So she doesn't have feathers. Actually, that's just for the song.
Yeah.
The song, yeah. The
So,
creature's kind of a dick, and I'm sure you
yes.
noticed this by now. Um, he understands pop culture references. Pretty much everything he understands about humanity is based on everything that's ever been thrown away or flushed,
Yeah.
because he's lived in the sewer system since the 1920s. So everything he knows has been pieced together from that.
And that's so many magazines, so many random books, so many weird packagings
Yeah.
that I can get. And
Ooh, sorry, I've
so
been sick as hell
the
for about a month and a half now.
Please don't apologize. Everybody else, including us in this household, has had lots of problems with that. Because I don't think it's going to go away until we get closer to the mid-season change.
Yeah,
Before it changes, everybody's going to have a slight break.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so my other question, after reading Riverside Chronicles and of course Silence is Crimson, are you going to have a crossover of any of the monsters?
So technically, there kind of already has been. Um, there's been one shared character. I don't want to ruin it yet because you'll find out just with names alone. Actually, no, I will tell you which character, but people will have to figure out what story for themselves, at least for now, until we do the next interview. See, so something to look at and like drive yourself crazy.
Okay.
Lilith also goes by Lil or Lily. She is a character that has been in another short story that was in Riverside Chronicles.
Okay.
The catch is in the story she never says her name, but there are little details which will become apparent actually a little bit further down the road with a number of these characters and some other characters being that you'll see in part 3, and then other
Okay.
short stories that are. There's a plan for all of this ultimately. It's kind of like my
So
own horror MCU basically. That's
yeah,
that's sort of the ultimate goal here, or what King does with Maine.
that's what I was thinking. What King does in Maine, and I just found out I'm not going crazy. No, I'm not going to tell you guys the story. You have to go back, you have to get it, and you have to read it. Okay, Jenny's not going crazy. That is a good thing.
Yeah, but I would say it's a little bit closer to the MCU than King, just because of all the connections and this all happening in one town. Oh, and also, well, no, I haven't officially done that one yet, so we're safe.
Yes.
There are some characters that you're going to see in prequel novels and prequel books that are still in the Riverside, in the town of Riverside, but aren't directly related to this story. It'll be like character links and stuff like that. So, and I guess that's
Okay.
more on the Stephen King end of things, probably.
Well, yeah, but you what Raz has done is he loves his Riverside. No, he's never leaving. He's going to live in Ohio for the rest of his life, but he's taking this place and he's made it one of the scariest places ever. But it's not always the monsters that are scary. Sometimes it's the people.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the people that you have to be just as afraid of as the monster in under your bed. So
Sometimes you can even trust a monster more than the person.
that is true because, well, some of your monsters have higher standards than some humans I've met.
They really
Uh,
do. Mr. Jones, in particular, probably has the most standards out of any creature or person I've ever written.
yes, I love Mr. Jones. I've probably read that story way too many times, but that's beside the point.
People haven't seen the last of Mr. Jones. I can
That's
promise
good.
you that that is Mr. Jones is the single character that I get asked the most about frequently.
Okay.
Not even will there be another Mr. Jones story? It's will I see Mr. Jones again? Just in that sort
Okay.
of context. And
Well,
I'm never really finished with things. It may take me a while to get to certain things. Like I was just talking about um, yesterday with you guys in the Corpse Garden Chronicles that I'm doing a follow up story to There's Something Different About Her. That's actually something I'm already working on. I'm hoping to finish during
yes.
NaNoWriMo. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that we could see more Mr. Jones, as I'm writing a lot this coming November.
I look forward to that because um Raz as a writer is from the beginning of all the stories, you're curious, you're compelled to continue going. And I think one of my most favorite stories so far was the one with the voices when he
Oh,
was at the mental hospital because the voices one actually does bother me most out of all of the because if I'm not mistaken there's two stories you've written because one was where these people around a campfire talking about it and they um hear the voices too, if I'm
Yes.
not mistaken.
Yeah. There is
Or
a theme of voices for sure.
oh yeah, that one just that idea due to the mental illness in my family does scare me the most.
Yeah, voices is an odd story. It was the first story I ever sold, believe it or not. The
Mhm.
very first story that I actually sold to someone that for a podcast or for a narration, which is
Mhm.
still crazy to me. I'm trying to remember who it was. Normally I know, but it's
Um
been a big day for the haunt, so my brain's been a
Give me one
little
moment
scattered.
and then I can find it.
Oh, I already found it. Mr.
You found it?
Creeps.
Mr. Creeps? Okay,
Mr.
cool.
Creeps. And the story at that point in time was called "I'm the Night Guard at a Mental Institutions." And a mental
Yeah.
institution make the voices stop.
Yes. And the other one is necromancy patient, I think. No?
Okay, that one
Or was it? I think
there's not a
that
lot of
was
voices in that one.
no. Okay. Well, the thing is my brain linked it by something that was said in it. Because what was happening?
Oh, okay, okay. But yeah, 2020 was the first story I ever sold to a podcast, and it was in August of that year. Well, it came out in August. I think the deal happened in June because he needed time to do it. But that was the very first one, and that was the only one I
Yes.
sold that year. 2021 was actually a huge year for me selling stories, but it all started with Mr. Creeps really liking the story, and then me realizing, hey, I should start putting these out there.
Yeah, Josh and I had been listening to creepypastas for a long time. And then to find out I that somebody I know that I have gotten to meet and does write these stories, and that probably more people than you can think of can actually sell creepypastas to be read.
Oh yeah, and it's interesting because when you say specifically creepy pasta, the same person that owns and operates the original creepypasta site also owns and operates the Chilling Tales network.
Yes.
And that is precisely who I've actually sold the majority of podcasts that have done my work or purchased my work to perform have been shows on their network.
Yes, I recommend Chilling Tales. Not just Raz's, but there's so many great stories on there. I have put them on and just let them play and listen to all the stories because they have great voice actors reading the stories
Oh yes,
there.
and if you,
And
I'm not going to repeat this story because you need to tune into yesterday's Corpse Garden to get the whole thing about it. But Scary Stories Told in the Dark by Otis Gyrie, also on that network, did a double feature episode with two of my stories. And that was, well, like I said, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Go ahead and watch that episode from yesterday on Corpse Gardens. Like I said, I talk about that a lot on there. And I don't want to rehash that to give you some different content to go and hunt down.
oh yes, please go check out our Raztopia special. And as we continue today's Raztopia special, we have just so much Raztopia in our life. We are so blessed. So
Can have it all.
yeah, I hope so because I'm enjoying it and I'm trying to share with everybody. So we've got the band back together. We've everybody who is still alive has figured out Riker is back, but not everybody understands what is happening with Riker.
Yeah, including Raker.
Yeah, because Riker's finding out things that he didn't know was possible.
Yeah, a lot's changing for him. The thing I want people to keep in mind is exactly a year has passed between the events of the first and the second book. Um, Based on the ending, like I said, and you should really read the book. I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't or wants to pick it up now that there's
No.
two books. I'm kind of like that. If I know it's a series, I'm more apt to pick something up, I guess. Um, he said a year to himself, creature-free year to himself, and a lot has changed in his mind and in his body and just his everything in that time. So we're hitting Riker in a very unique moment where he's truly been alone, entrapped for a whole year.
Yeah, his whole entire mindset has changed about the situation and what he is doing and can do further. Is there any difference in how you felt from the beginning writing Riker to now in the situation?
I
You
actually just answered a question about this for an interview that is being done for my school for a project. Actually, like we had to switch off to
okay?
do interviews with other authors, and they asked me about I had to pick any one of my characters that I write, and the question was about how like me they are. Um, I gotta say, Riker is the most like me out of every character I've written. I've literally written characters using my legal name, and no one actually calls me, or a variation of. I've used characters. There's something different about her. Or yeah, there's something different about her. Was I just use my middle name Aaron, but it's totally me. It's totally me. But Riker is this the pulling no punches version of me, where I just say exactly what I'm thinking, I say exactly what I'm feeling. But it's also the combination of me and my brother, who was very much the same way. He approached it very differently, but in that manner, we were much the same. So I'm working with this version of my brother that's frozen in history, right? Because he's committed suicide. He's passed away in real life. So I only
Yeah.
have up until a certain point of his life to draw from. But I'm still alive. I'm still constantly changing. As a person, as a writer, as an everything, are still continuing to develop and learn and see the world and his death and many other things differently. So my struggle is to keep the part of Riker that's him the same, but the part that's me is evolving. And the way that's being done is I spent more time thinking about this than anything else I've ever written, just in terms of how to write him as Riker as a character like this. So it's tough in terms of to talk about out loud because in my head I know exactly where I'm at with him. I know what he needs to do, what he needs to stay, and he's at this period of his life where he's actually angry. He's
Yes.
actually angry. He has been abandoned by everything and everyone, whether against their will or not. The abandonment is real, and it's been silenced, and he's been stuck in his head for a year. He has seen what this world is with the creature. He's now got a taste for life without it. Because even if he's rotting in that sewer by himself, it's still a better life than what the creature had been affording him for the last 31 years by the time the creature, comes back to him. Or never truly left. It's a long explanation we need to read the book to catch on to. And you'll definitely need to read the first one before you read this one, clearly.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
definitely recommend always go back, reread or read Silence is Crimson. If you have read it, reread it and then read it because you'll be re-caught up. And it's always something I definitely recommend. Reread your favorite books over and over.
but yeah, I think there's a level of empowerment in Riker now. Now that he's got that little taste. But maybe he can get that taste and make that reality on his own terms. And that's where he's at in this, very much where he's at. He wants things to change on his terms, not anyone else's, not this thing, just his. For once in his life, he wants to control one aspect of something,
Hmm.
and he's going after it.
So for some odd reason, my brain is saying no on the names. Lilith's parents, they both have the same problem, but they never talk to each other about it.
Yeah, Eddie and
They
Leslie.
both, Eddie and Leslie, they both feel the same way. One is trying to push it away. Eddie is trying to push it away, but Leslie has realized it's not as easy as he seems to think pushing it away will be.
Right.
Is there a with that idea and mindset, has there been anything that you have seen that helps with that? And how did you come to the idea to have them both with such different ideas, but about how to approach it?
These are also characters that I'm really blessed to have real life counterparts, and I spent time thinking each and every one of the actual counterparts of these characters that are real people in the opening of the book. Um, Eddie and Leslie were a friend of mine and my brother's for God. Eddie I'd known since fifth grade, and then Leslie
Uh-huh.
we met in ninth grade. Um, they were just people that were so ingrained in part of our lives. Leslie's still a very big part of my life. I still talk to Leslie frequently. She lives in Tennessee, so we don't see each other as often, but we make time usually like about once a year or so to see each other physically and sit down and share stories. Eddie was off the map traveling and stuff for a while, but as of this year, I'm actually happy to report that him and I are talking again. He's kind of settling
Yay.
down a little bit, and he's not all that far, so we're hoping to make some plans to meet up and have our kind of coming together and speaking and sitting down in the same room, which hasn't happened since about a year or two out of high school. So it's been 20 years in the making this get together. So I'm excited about that as well. But their personalities in the book are very much their personalities in life. Eddie was a little meek at first, but then as he grew up, he started getting a little hot tempered.
Mhm.
Leslie is the kind of is Leslie keeps the torch burning. She's the person that has your back, that knows what you need, and is there for you even when you don't realize they're there for you. I'd say motherly, but it's not even quite motherly. It's very hard to explain, but I wanted to show that in a way. In real life, they're not together. They've been friends for eternity, so that's not a real fact of life. But I always thought the way that she handled each of us in our group, that's kind of how Leslie handles Hetty, and their fictional counterparts handle each other as well. Like Leslie is definitely the person to know that if something traumatizing has happened to everyone in the group, she would be the one that kept tabs on it. She would be the one that knew where everything was, all the moving parts, and was keeping track of everything, so no one else had
Yes.
to. So that's what I very much wanted to keep the same in this fictional relationship for
Yes.
her. And Eddie was often the kind of guy that would kind of, even when he was kind of balls to the wall, as he got stood up for himself a lot more as time went by, he would get to that point where he just wouldn't want to think about something, so he didn't.
That I
Just the
understand.
willful, just forgetting, moving on, and not thinking about at all cost. So that was an important part of his very real personality that I put into this character as well, because it really worked for what we were doing. And the whole
Yes, it
concept was
did.
for us all to be together again somewhere, kind of the four of us. We had a band at one point in time and everything. It was Mr. Eyetooth and the Majestic Moose, and I was the drummer back then before I crushed my hand. I was an okay drummer, not terrible, not as good as I was a vocalist, but I could keep some beats.
Yes, he's a wonderful vocalist. Um, Freck? Fack?
Freak,
Freak. Okay.
FREQ.
Today, today, all the names that I've been thinking about for the past week have just went because I'd been preparing for this and I've been reading and well, we read together and I had names and then today everything just went sideways.
You're
So
good.
yeah,
It's been a sideways kind of day. We had to be at the haunt actually by about 5:36 this morning because our local ABC Fox affiliates decided they wanted to do a series of videos. We thought it was gonna be like 3 videos, but that turned into like 3 videos, 3 lives from our haunt this morning, and a bunch of other little pickup videos. Like it was a lot. We they didn't actually get there and get started until probably about 8:15 or so, something like that, and they didn't leave until like 10. And then we a lot of new TikToks coming out for the haunt because they filmed a lot of TikToks right after, and they usually post them on the haunt's account. I found out at midnight is usually when we drop our TikTok
okay.
videos. I don't do TikTok, so I had no idea what the timeline of that was. But today I learned that it's at midnight usually.
Okay. Cool.
So that was my most of my day today. It was my week was preparing for this and then getting there and doing it, and just then haunt weekend starts back to normal tomorrow, and we actually are adding a Sunday. It's the only time of year we do it is this Sunday.
Yes, because we are gearing down to Halloween.
Yes, yes. And with Halloween being on a weekday, no one usually opens their haunt for Halloween because of schools and jobs and whatnot.
So is Halloween at the haunt or Halloween weekend at the haunt usually worse and more trafficy?
It depends. There was a time in Ohio where I tell you that this was the weekend for haunts everywhere, and that was true for decades until COVID. Honestly,
Mhm.
around COVID, which is when the haunt opened. The haunt opened like just past the height of COVID, barely past the height of COVID. So we actually had shield masks underneath masks,
Mhm.
and like face masks underneath other masks. Like we had a 30-some page document in order to stay open from our governor actually allowing us to open, and a lot of haunts didn't. But that started a weird trend. We noticed that Halloween, for the first Halloween in haunt history, no one came. In our
Oh, wow.
parking lot, at best, we did 30 people that first night, or that first Halloween. And that number was also partially because no one really knew who we were. COVID was still very much a terrifying thing. Um, and that's grown over the years, but it's never bounced back to where like the hell weekend it used to be for everyone in Ohio. And I notice it is still that busy in some places, but everyone in the haunt industry has felt that hit since COVID, and it's been slowly bouncing back a little bit for everybody each year, which is great for the industry. But there's no way to predict. I mean, it could
Yes.
finally make the shift and be a nightmare weekend this weekend, because this past weekend, which has up until now been our busiest weekend, kind of flat places, and it was okay busy, but we're wondering if everyone was getting all their Halloween parties and everything out of the way this past weekend, maybe in hopes that this one will be the weekend for the haunt. So it's hard to gauge
So
people.
I have no idea. I just know this is the first year in a long time that I've actually been able to go to haunts, and I find that awesome.
Oh yeah, that is so awesome, man. And the first Silence and Crimson features a scene in a haunt
Yes.
initially, and that was not
It-
originally going to be part of the book at all.
No.
That was based on we had the chance during the filming to go film some scenes at a haunt, and then from there we kind of enjoyed it so much that it's like, wait a minute. And I wrote that into the novel right before the first release was done. Like I was like, wait, hold up, publication, have to add this.
So are you going to write more stories in a haunt?
Oh yes, oh yes. Um, I'm trying to remember if I included this in Riverside Chronicles, and you would think I would know this, but as a writer, sometimes when you write a lot of, especially shorts, they kind of
Mhm.
have lives of their own and they go where they want to, and then you'll forget where they're at. This happens to me in particular very, very frequently, like a
Yes.
scary amount of frequency, to the point where sometimes I couldn't tell you what stories I had in different anthologies because it gets overwhelming.
That I can understand. I have just crammed so much in my head this weekend from getting ready for Dark Dreams and to this.
Yeah. So
Um,
yes, in the Riverside Chronicles, the Mirror Man is another
Mirror
story
Man?
from a haunt that I included in that collection. That's
Okay.
part of my urban
Cool.
legend series I was doing for a little while. It's stories that were just based on urban legends that I knew, or
Okay.
and it made it into that collection.
I'm definitely gonna have to reread that one because my brain just went.
I don't mind
I
talking
am.
about it a little bit actually, because this is an interesting story. Um, this is largely based on some people that I worked with at my current haunt during year one, who
Yes, please.
one left and one got fired right after year one, and I had actually quit because of them. And after they left, literally the amount of phone calls and text messages and Facebook messages I got, oh, they're gone. Will you come back? And then a glorious phone call where I was about to call Fred, the owner, to see if he would be interested, if my family and I could come back. And I opened my phone, I set it down, like on his number, and I ran to the bathroom. I was going to call him when I got out. And the cat just jumped on the phone and hit send. And he was, I guess it was in the background, like, hello, hello, and hung up. And then he called me back. Michelle heard the phone, then, like, freaked out, grabbed the phone, and, like, ran to me. And me and Fred always joke that if it weren't for the cat, I may not, we may not have actually had that phone call, because I'm the kind of person that will want to do something, but I could have easily changed my mind by the time I came back from the bathroom. Like, I'm like that sometimes. So we blame the
I'm
cat
happy
for
it
us
happened.
coming back. We are too. We are
Good
too.
kitty kitty.
It was Crowley. Crowley's pretty good to me.
What is your favorite part is working as the haunt manager for the acting?
Man, so this is a job that I've done before on a smaller scale, where I'm kind of more directing the show itself, so I don't have as much time to act. But this is on a much bigger scale. This is for way more actors than what I've done before. I think it was like maybe 31 or 32 actors that I had done this with before, and we're talking like if everyone on our cast showed up, we're talking about 80 something people.
Mhm.
So it's some nights the majority of them have shown up, so it's a lot to manage. Um, Watching them when they don't know that I'm there, which is often because I'm really good at hiding. I know all the security paths. Watching what the haunt means to them, that moment in their face where they're a little tired, they're a little bit down. And that next customer comes around the corner, and everyone in that place, man, they just light up. You see their character in their eyes, even through the masks, and they just come to life and they tell you this whole story in 7 to 9 seconds. That is my
Yes.
favorite part, watching each and every one of them and watching their connection to the haunt and what their act is. And that's my favorite moment. It makes me so
Oh, yeah.
proud of them to know that, and some of them have never done this before this year. Some of them have been with us for years, but they're very shy people. Like they don't talk normally, hardly to anyone. So, and all these different people from all these different walks of lives and beliefs and family structures, to see everybody come together and do this one thing together, all across the board every night, and then to go into the queue line and see it just packed and busy. Me and Sean and the other managers there, we'll look at each other. We wait. We start in the beginning of the night. We look at each other and we ask each other, how you feeling right now? Do you need anything? And at the same time, because it's kind of a joke between us now, we look at each other and say, ask me at 1 a.m. Because generally by 1 a.m. we're definitely done. And if not, that's a good thing because that means we were even busier. And we had a huge ticket line when we shut tickets off at midnight. So that's kind of how we start our night. And then we radio each other and we go back and meet up throughout the night in the queue line just to see how long it is. And we just stand there together. And we just look at it. It's the
That is
fullest it's
awesome.
ever been. And this is our fourth season. And our queue line is full so often these days, which had never really quite happened before. And that's the moment. That's a tying moment. To these two things are just my favorite things. Just stand next to Sean and looking at it and seeing this place packed and watching them do their acts, man. Just knowing where it came from, what these acts were when they started, what they are next, especially now this late in the season. We did a camera walkthrough, just me and Michelle did it for me during Family and Friends night. The first night we opened, that was September 8th.
Mhm.
And then she's doing another walkthrough this Friday. So I'm going to have more camera footage, but I'm going to get to see that chance. I'm going to get that chance to see 2 months later how the show has changed, what's gotten better, like the game tape from everything to see how far we've come, kind of. And that's something Fred and I are both really excited to just get into and see it. I'll get home and clean it up a little bit, and I'll send it to him, and he'll watch it at home. I'll watch it at home, and we'll just kind of come together a little bit after that. But
That sounds awesome.
yeah, I'm really excited to see that. I usually do an end of year video every year, a video of some kind that just kind of celebrates the year we had before. Some years it's a little bit more involved than others, but this year I'm actually going to we do a homecoming for the kids. It's really any of the young ones all the way up. You can even come as an adult, like our adult cast can come as chaperones. But that started because there was no homecoming year one. All the schools canceled, and we thought, how can we celebrate our young ones for coming in and busting their ass and helping us work, that are giving up, normally they're giving up a lot of social time like they are now, but during COVID, like this was their only safe place to go, because we had, we were very serious about our protocols and our distance and our masks. Like we were very serious about it. So this truly was a safe place for them to come to. So we did dance, and that's been an annual thing every year. Well, I didn't tape it last year, and I didn't do our award ceremonies like the last couple of years, because we have a whole award ceremony thing that we do at the end of the year as well. But this year I'm doing the dance again. I'm filming the award ceremony again. So I'm trying to document even more than before what all we're doing and where we're doing it. So it's a lot of video work for me, oddly enough, between now and the 18th for as far as filming goes. And then I usually sometime by around Christmas, right before we do our Christmas show, I bring out the award ceremony video. Will be like right before Christmas to kind of have a present to share together.
Is that how you decided to have Homecoming as the big end of the first book?
Yeah, actually, the homecoming we do at the haunt was my inspiration, because originally I wasn't going to have it at the school. I was going to be a small, thing with maybe a couple dozen kids, like maybe at the haunt. It was my initial plan for this. once I really started thinking about Homecoming. Because I knew what the story would be, but I didn't know what the ending was going to be, like of this particular, like where it was going to stop before it goes into the next one. But the more and more I thought about it, there was already the tie-in to Riverside, like the heavy tie-in. Even though the hunt's on the edge of Riverside, it made sense for it to go back to the school that me and Ryan and Leslie and Eddie went to together. It screened me, it pulled me in that direction. I couldn't deny it. I could not deny that Walter E. Stebbins was where it had to go. And it literally is right across from the police station. Like literally, you can stand in the parking lot of the school and see the police station across the street. So like literally the geography of so many things about these books are accurate, like today accurate. Some of them are details based on when I was younger and what existed at that time, but there's usually some kind of like notation in there about what year it is, or if you pay attention to reading between the lines, you can usually tell at least what era it's happening in.
Oh yeah. The Platt Rats. Is there a more to the group than who was mentioned in the book?
So the Platt Rats is every townie that lived in Riverside, and the Valley Platte area of Riverside especially. That was the name for all of us. We were the ones that weren't in the military, that no one really cared much about, that didn't expect us to make much of ourselves because, again, we were in Air Force. And Wright Pat Air Force Base is like literally a giant chunk of a section, I should say, of the Air Force Base is a big part of what Riverside is, especially the Air Force Base Museum. That's predominantly in Riverside. So when you live in a military town, for those that don't know, if you're a townie, you matter significantly less. No one really expects much of you or that you'll accomplish much of anything. The schools are focused more often on getting the military people a good education before they move with their kids to another state and so on and so forth. Everything in Riverside is pretty much geared to that except for the Valley Platte. The Valley Platte, man, that's where all the fast food restaurants are, the better ones. That's where everybody goes to hang out. You'll see a lot of the military folks head over that way, like the young ones, the ones we went to school with. They'd come down and hang out, but those were the neighborhoods where our community park was. Roar Park, it's in very much a part of the second book, and will be technically a part of it was part of the first one too. That's right smack in the middle of the neighborhood. That's our park. That's the Platte Rat Park. So that's just a name that was there for all the rats before I even was born. It's always been the name, and still is the name for everyone that lives in the Valley Platte.
I have found, and in all your stories, I can see how much you love the area.
I really do, honestly. It's probably not an area a person should love, if I'm going to be honest with you. When I was very young, there was a problem with racism.
Yes.
We talked a lot about, my heritage, so I won't get all into that again. It wasn't tough for me because of the families that pretty much ran everything I was related to through marriage. So it made my life a lot easier, and people like me quite a bit, and my family. But it's disgusting to even think about this out loud, honestly. If you weren't the right color, you didn't walk into that Platte and sometimes make it out. That didn't have to do with anyone I knew or personally spent time with. Even as a young child, I was very much against that way of thought and that way of action. I dealt with a lot of racism early on myself at times. So it was very bad for that. There were Klan houses in that neighborhood. There were chop shops in that neighborhood. A little bit of an underground market went through that area. It was not a good place when I was young. It was not a good place to be for a human being, especially for a kid. And all the crazy adventures that I've talked about growing up, the weird stories have all happened in that neighborhood. Even the good and the bad ones, all in that neighborhood.
Yes.
Because I lived on both sides of that neighborhood, from one end of it to the other in my lifetime. So far. But the place it is now is very different. It's a lot more welcoming. It's communal. It's you mess with my neighbor, you don't piss me off kind of scenario for the most part. The Klan houses are gone, thankfully, for a while now. The meth labs are gone. They went through and did this entire cleanup of Riverside, actually. But Riverside is actually a pretty decent place to live now, which is crazy to me because it was not kid safe growing up at all, not remotely. Roar Park was mostly full of glass and trash in its entirety. You weren't even allowed to ride your bike or walk over there. It was that bad. and to see it like
Yes.
when they rebuilt the park, the heart of our entire plat. That's when everything started changing there. That's when it started becoming a nicer place. And they rebuilt that park, made it brand new, playground, slides, you name it. And then it kind of healed the area, I guess, a little bit. And it started coming back. It started getting, like I said, a nice place to live. And I've wanted to actually go back and move back over that way for a while now. I'm generally never too far from there. Like if I'm living somewhere permanently, I can't be too far because there's things I need to go back and look at. Because I write all about this stuff all the time. So there's ultimately going to be something I need to go back and check out. And like, even if it's a building that's not there anymore, just standing in the parking lot of where it used to be, or just nearby where it used to be, and feeling that old vibe and just closing my eyes is enough connection usually to remember what I need to remember.
Hmm.
But I would absolutely love to move back to Riverside, for sure.
Oh yeah. Did you add any of your favorite places you love to go to most in the book?
Uh,
Either of them.
so I will say there are a couple of locations that aren't in Riverside. They're just like literally on the edge that I have just commandeered and made a part of Riverside because this is my version of Riverside, damn it. And while it is a real
Oh yeah.
place, to me, it's bigger than its limits because it
Yes.
represents my childhood and my life in addition to a physical location. Bell Book and Comic.
Oh yeah.
That's part of the opening. One of the early chapters of the new book. That's a real comic book shop. Pete is a real human being that I cannot tell you how he has been so good to me. I've not actually been a regular customer of his in about 6 or 7 years. He sees me anywhere. He remembers me. He knows who I am. He knows what I used to buy. Like we talk, we stop and talk. And he goes to all the conventions, even the horror conventions. So I see him frequently still to this day. I actually just ran into him to be at a convention. I was helping out with a friend of mine just a couple weeks ago, and I was like, and this time it's been almost a 3 year gap since we'd physically seen each other. And I walked up and I said, "Hey Pete, I'm not sure if you remember me." He's like, "Raz." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, you do remember me, sweet." Well, a while ago I talked about filming a movie, part of a movie in your shop, which was when we were talking about filming the sequel to, well, this project because we had the first movie, and he had given me full permission. Was really excited about it, but that was like 7 years ago. We never actually
Hmm.
filmed it. And so a couple weeks ago, he found out that he's a character now, and that the Bell Book and Comic is in the story. And really, I walked away and heard him going, "Hey guys, I'm in a book." So
Yay.
I'm going to be getting a copy to take down to him, especially because that's technically a part of like East Dayton, Kettering, which is again Belmont, which is right on the edge of Riverside. So damn it, for my purposes, it's Riverside.
Yes.
But that
As
park, like I
far
said,
as
that
we're
that
all
park was a big
concerned,
one.
yes.
Yeah, that park
So
was a big one. The big gray house on the corner, that's my mom's house. It talks about in chapter one. That's actually in the field next to my mom's house. So there is a lot of locations in all the stories and in both the books. Every location is a real location. It's a real
mhm,
place. It's a specific house. It's a specific business. I could do a whole tour.
yes.
We were joking about this the other day. We should get a tour. Michelle's like, we should get a tour bus and then like do like creepy tours. And then she's like, oh yeah, then you can do a Riverside tour of all the locations.
Yeah, dude, I'd just be happy if you went through and you took like random pictures and then you like said something eerie or creepy to go with one of the stories to go with the picture and make a photo album.
We could do that through Google Earth or whatever it is. I've
That
actually
would be
done this
awesome.
before, kind of. I'm actually looking to see if I've still got the picture really quick because I'm not sure if it's a picture I actually kept or not. But I'm gonna glance really quick. If I see it, I'll upload it. Um, anytime I write a story about the house I grew up in particular, um, it's that house. But I used to have, like I said, a lot of copies of it. I'm trying to peek and see if I still happen to have it. Um,
Okay.
because I don't honestly know if I've kept this picture. It's a while ago. I don't think that I do, but it would be very easy for me while we're hanging out to do a new version of it and post it because, like I said, it was something that I really really enjoyed doing.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
That's yeah, Google Street View or whatever it is called. It used to be called Google Earth, but I think now it's just like Street View or
Mhm.
something like that. But yeah, like it's crazy that we can do that. That we can just kind of for anywhere we are, just type in an address and just see where things are. It's so weird to me that the growth of
Yes.
technology, and that's something I struggle with in the books too. To be honest with you.
I noticed you wrote the books with lack of like all the most modern technology, which made sense to me because you keep talking about Rastopia not being in the now, but back in a certain time period.
Yeah, it's definitely early to mid '90s. I would say is where Rastopia exists.
I like that idea because uh, I would put my, I think about 97 in the fall. That was one of the best times before a bunch of things happened. I can picture that as being a good year. But um let's talk about your short story and Dark Dreams Letting in the Night. Got you
Oh
where
yes.
I want you. You said that story didn't where it ended was not where you expected it to go.
Oh no, not at all. That was originally going to be a story about a serial killer. That was my big plan with that. And that's not remotely where it went at all. Actually, initially, I was going to use it for an urban fantasy series I've been working on secretly in the background about a bard named Seth in modern day. That's actually, if we're being really honest, what it was written for.
Mhm.
But as I was writing it, that's not what it felt like it was before. It's hard to explain, I guess. That's not what it felt like it was for at all. And I just sort of ended up kind of sitting on it for a while. And then I had the opportunity to do something a little bit different. And we needed a romance story for the anthology is what she told me that she wanted from me, which I had never. I don't do romance. I do relationships and stuff like that inside of things like this, but never really romance do I do. So this
Yes.
was a way for me to do a romance horror and kind of get out of my own head a little bit and do something cross genre. But yeah, I really thought this would be a serial killer story is what it was going to end up being.
Mhm.
Before the romance title, and then I just had to sort of sit down with it for a while. And it was actually a breakthrough from both Dell and my roommate slash brother Jason, literally within like 10 minute conversation, two different conversations with different people within like 10 minutes of each other, and a read through with Matt actually that made me realize that I was doing something that I had never done before, and it excited me so much that I kind of went with it. And I'm hesitant to like call it out for what it is, only because well, you know what? I've said this actually already publicly. It's my first vampire story. And when you're reading it, even knowing that is not going to change anything for you because it's the way that I've done it that kind of flips the whole thing on its head a little bit. I've changed not anything in particular. Like I didn't get involved in the mythology of vampires, nothing like that. We just assume you know everything about vampires. I'm not going to insult you by explaining how becoming a vampire works, etc., etc.
Mhm.
You're getting dumped into the middle of a situation with a guy remembering his life and remembering these events fondly. And as he's walking around the town like it is now, he's remembering what it was like back in the '90s when he walked those streets. So you're
Mhm.
hearing kind of this story that reveals pieces of himself every building he passes by and stops and starts, jumps back into the story and talks a little bit more. So you hear his history kind of and what he's been doing for X amount of years of his life. So
Mhm.
it's written very, very differently, different sort of point of view for this sort of thing. But you may or may not immediately recognize even who or what the vampire is until
No.
the very end, and
Yeah, you don't
that was
get
the
it.
real kicker for me.
You go through it, you don't get it. You think it's a normal type of romance story for the pub crawl generation, so
Yes,
to speak, and then
exactly.
you just are like, "Oh, wow, not exactly what I expected, but cool."
Yeah, it was one of those moments where I'm writing this story, I'm writing, and I'm like, I got to figure out, where this is going to go, what's ultimately going to happen, and then, and then yeah, and then all that happens, and I was just as surprised by the ending of that. I think as anyone will be when they read it because I even when I made the decision, okay, like this is obviously a vampire story, I had no idea that that was going to be how it ended up. I just sort of let the characters talk to me, kind of figure out what they were doing. I thought about what would be most impactful and then just sort of, I guess, went from there.
And the really odd thing is we both did the same type of thing. A
Yes.
story that's you tell the story, but it's about a past experience.
Yes.
Except yours is a vampire, and mine, of course, is ghosts.
And all the places in that are also real, by the way.
Well,
They're also real, like Riverside / downtown Dayton locations, even in that story.
well, so is mine. I just changed the name of the nursing home
True. Yeah. Yeah.
because mine is based on a nursing home that my family has worked in for years. My aunt, my sister, cousins. We just all somehow end up back at this nursing home, and yeah.
Makes sense.
In the last Owl Light Society meeting, you can hear my sister's stories from the nursing home. Please go listen to Melanie's stories because those are really experiences that people keep having at this nursing home. I say these, but this particular one. But you can find ghosts at most any nursing home. You just have to be willing to try it. Ooh, the picture's up.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to interrupt you. I was just throwing it up while you were talking.
Oh, I know, but it just
Okay.
blinked on my side. I'm like, oh, okay. But yes, please go listen to her story. And because she was supposed to be here today, but there was a mishap, and we hope they help her fix the mishap.
Yes.
And we love you, Sissy. Look forward to talking to you later. Anyways, back to the thing. You were telling us about this picture of this building you brought up.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and pop it up real quick. This is the house I grew up in. The house that has fueled so many terrifying
Oh,
horror
wow.
stories that I've both written down and shared, or just shared from a campfire, storytelling perspective. Like, this is literally the house of my nightmares. And what
Okay.
you can't see, because I couldn't get a view that was good enough, it's in that backyard where the giant tree house is that I sometimes talk about. Like, it was 15 foot off the ground
Mhm.
with post hole digs. So it's actual structured support with an actual professional, like professionally crafted staircase that with landings that led all the way up to the top. It had a front porch built onto the front with like porch lights and everything. Then you'd go into, like, it was an actual entry door, and actual windows were put in this thing. So it's like
That is so cool.
today's standards, it's a tiny house. That's
Professional
exactly what it
made
is.
treehouse that
Yeah, it was something that my dad always worked with his hands. Wood was kind of a big wood, and fishing were his life when he wasn't at his normal job. And everyone on my dad's side of the family were, builders of some kind, builders and mechanics or electricians. And it was them and Ryan's father. They all got together over the course of a few days, and they built the entire thing. They even put, concrete down in the bottom of the post. I mean, my all the adults got on top of this thing when it was
Mhm.
just a platform still, and jumped, ran into it, did everything they could to move this thing with the foundation, and it was solid. And we're talking, this was thousands upon. By the time it was over, I think at one point in time there were over 3,000 pounds just on the platform,
Oh, wow.
jumping and moving and running, at least 3,000 pounds, just to make sure that this was like safe for the little kids that were going to be in it. So they
That is
really
awesome.
outdid themselves. They painted it and everything, and that thing, that playhouse lasted. It's still in that backyard. People, it's so solid and was built so well, and it was, weatherized properly, that the most that's ever happened is after it got old, it got some new paint. And some,
That is so
a couple
cool.
planks in the stairs have been replaced. The railing on the porch have been replaced once or twice. But like, this has been a playground in the back of that house since the 80s, since 1986. But there was no angle in which I could get on street view and that would actually show the playhouse.
So my entire existence. Gotcha.
Pretty much.
um, what is coming next in Riverside?
I mean, I'd love to give you like all these things that I'm doing next, but this year about killed me. I'm not gonna lie, in a lot of
Oh,
ways. My
yeah.
health has been the worst it's ever been this year. Um, half of last year and the early half of this year, we were living in hotels. We lost our home, and everything that could go wrong or bad in my life just about has gone wrong and gone terrible. And I don't know, looking back on it, this is another thing I was talking about during that school interview. Like, what have you done in the last year with your writing? The answer is a lot, apparently. I finished the Riverside collection. I've written 3 unique short stories this year, and Silence and Crimson 2 came out this year. I finally got it done.
Yes.
So looking back on it, I have no idea when the fuck I did all this. If I'm being honest, I've got no idea when I had time to do any of the things I did this year. Part of it was knowing my story so well. Part of it's autopilot, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
I just don't know how I did it, and that's not a brag or a flex like people might think it is. It's me literally going, no, when did I do this? Because I have no memory or recollection really of sitting down to do any of it. So now I'm breathing. Right now,
Oh.
until NaNoWriMo starts in 5 days from now, I'm breathing. There are things I'd like to do in the future. There's one more book, only one left, in the Sounds of Crimson trilogy. 2 years. Halloween, 2 years from now.
That
That's
works.
when that's coming out. That's a promise. That's 2 years. I already know how it ends. And I already have almost half of it written, actually, secretly, but as a script form, which is a very long story. So I just had to transfer that half into an actual book rather than a script, which is very different. Like I said, I know how it ends. I've known this ending since I wrote the first sentence of the first book. So getting that out in 2 years is a guarantee that's easy to make, without me stressing to death between now and then.
Yes.
You're gonna see more collections, more Riverside Chronicles collections. There's one that's gonna be literally all about this place.
That will be fun. Are you going to include that story about the worst haunting night when you moved out of the house that was in the Owlite Society?
I am.
Okay.
There were some stories, some famous stories of mine that were suspiciously absent from the first Riverside Chronicles. The reason for that is there's a folder in my drive that says Riverside Chronicles 2 Home Sweet Home. And it is that and a couple other ones are currently sitting in that folder, done and ready to go. I have literally probably a fifth of this. Yeah, about a fifth of the whole thing done. So there's a lot of stories I've only ever told that I've never written, that I'll be writing down during NaNoWriMo and probably over the winter. So the best bet is that I'll probably get that done for next year. If I'm being completely honest, I write short stories at a lot quicker pace than I write novels. A lot. Sometimes I can write an entire short story in a matter of a couple hours because I just don't stop and it's there. Sometimes it takes me a week or two. But
Okay.
that's something that with Nano, having to write 50,000 words alone, I'm planning to do a lot of that with Nano because it's easy to do. Lincoln, talking about my kids' book for a minute. My kids' picture book.
Oh yeah.
For young, very, very young single-digit children. That's also in Riverside. Funnily enough, we were going to do another one this year, but with how my life went and the insanity of everything, it's a guaranteed release for next year. Lincoln and all his little new friends, the snake in the basement, the ghost girl in the attic, and the 2 monsters that live in his closet and under the bed, are getting together for a Christmas adventure for next year, and they're going to meet Krampus. And it's something, after I met the guys from the Krampus Society here in Ohio last year around Christmas time, they got me thinking a lot about that. And I'm thinking about making that a charity book, most likely, because that seems like the most important thing to do really with Lincoln, is to make it about charity. And so moving forward, it's definitely going to be my charitable series. So you'll definitely there's 2 books you're definitely getting next year. Lincoln 2 for the young ones and Riverside Chronicles 2. But there are other projects. Like I said, and I can give you the title for Sounds of Crimson 3. It's called Riker's Revenge.
That will be fun.
Yeah.
And scary and
yeah. So next
many
3
other
years,
things.
there's 3 right there. I'm working on a creative nonfiction book. It's called, this might be confusing because I have an audio drama series that's going to be adapted into a novella for next year. That's another thing that's happening.
Yay.
So the fictional universe of the Hunter's Handbook is going to be a thing. It's going to be a novella next year for a guarantee. I'm finishing writing the rest of that whole arc, probably during Nano also because we have some recording to do for the audio drama because you play a character in that.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, so that's going to be an actual novella that people can purchase next year. And but I want to do something actually called the Hunter's Handbook specifically, and to talk about nonfiction about the hunt industry, what my life has been like in the hunt industry for the last 29 years, in terms of acting, like and how do you create a character, how do you come up with the costume ideas, how do you come up with these ideas, what's your backstory. It's going to be part informational and part workbook where you can actually
Mhm.
go in and answer the questions and write them down yourself. The sections for character development, building your set and environment around your character. Just the whole thing is just involving a character and how to set that up. And I'm hoping to use that in order to train future hunters, to help owners get an idea in their spaces when they're thinking about character specific rooms or areas. And I talked to a lot of hunt owners and other acting managers like me and just different people that do different jobs in haunts. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback from this idea over the last 2 years. And a lot of people that are willing to do interviews with me and talk to me about it and help me out with whatever I need. So that's going to happen in the next year or two as well. That's a done deal. I'm going to get in trouble if I don't do it at this point. Everybody's tired of me not doing it yet. So that's going to happen.
So when it happens, yay. Until then, we look forward to it.
Yes. The biggest two things though for me right now, I don't have a whole lot left of my master's degree for creative writing and literature or my teaching certificate. By the time it's over, part of getting that degree, I have to write a book, an entire book, all new, and I have to find an agent and a publisher. And it's good because I'm getting out there. I'm forced to meet and work with other people in the industry. But I'm sad because it's not going to be released with everything else through Fae Corps, this one, because it has to be, at least at the moment, unless I can cut them into it. And I've got to actually submit to a lot of different places. So I'm not really sure how that's going to shake out. But it also happens to be about haunted attractions. It's a
That will be fun.
legendary haunted attraction from the 70s that took place somewhere in this tri-state area called the Haunted Hospital. There's a very real
Mhm.
location. I'm using a lot of actual facts based on this place that I was able to actually dig up, but it's a combination of fiction and nonfiction, but put together in such a way that you may not be able to tell what was real and what wasn't. And it's epistolary style, so it happens and through transcriptions of performances, interviews, emails, texts, just all kinds of different media all coming together on the printed page to tell this one giant story from the perspective of almost 70 different characters. So it is the most ambitious thing I could possibly conceive. And how I convinced them to let me do this as a thesis, I don't know. But all the teachers and the people up there that I've discussed with have loved it, and it's already been greenlit, and they've already gotten 6 sample chapters at this school. So within the next 2 years, that'll be done, and that'll be something out there. Working title right now is just the Haunted Hospital. And the last one I want to talk about for a second, there was an anthology that I did that I was very excited about doing. I believe it was last year. It's called Seeking Stories, Tales of Fantasy Adventure.
Yes.
It was one of the Fae Corps anthologies. Was that last year? Am I correct? Because my brain is.
I'm thinking it was last year. It's either last year or the year before. I don't know. My brain has crashed on
Right.
times, and it's names aren't working and dates aren't working.
Okay.
But
Well, you can buy that book for $4.99, and the link is literally on my website, rastslasher.com. Okay, yeah, 2022. Publication date was June 1st. So I got a chance to do something that I'd always wanted to do, which was write urban fantasy. A whole story that was just urban fantasy that starts in the middle of action and ends in the middle of an action, just a piece. This featured my longest running RP character in the history of time since I began my journey with D&D at the age of 8 in 1990. It's a bard that's Fae touched named Seth. Seth is a lot like Captain Jack from the Doctor Who universe. He will sleep with
yes.
anything, male, female, in between, tree person, what have you.
Please tell me the car does not become one of the partners.
One of his partners.
I mean, one of his bed
N-
partners.
no, no.
Okay, thank you.
Um, not in the
I
car
love the
form.
car.
Not in the car form.
Okay, that makes me feel better because I don't want to think how that one would happen.
I mean, it's got a tailpipe, but we wanted to go there. Um,
I love the
so
car. It's one of my favorite characters.
me too. Uh, Seth is a very suave guy. He's an alcoholic. He's fine with that. You won't really know because he can kind of turn it with the Fae influence. He can kind of shut it off and turn it on anytime he needs to.
Hmm.
Um, he's a loudmouth. He goes out, he plays shows, like hangs out in a band when they show up to work. Otherwise, he just does solo stuff. But he also goes on adventures with his friends, and he solves weird, fucked up mysteries and does things, that primarily things that get him money because he likes money. He's also a legendary bard, and this is a world in which magic is real, but it's kind of layered in between and below our society, and it's modern day. So there's a lot of hiding of magic, and people, the real world can't know that it exists, kind of stuff. This is also a world where bards and bardic magic is not outlawed, but it's rare. It's usually kind of underground, and there aren't actually many bards left in the world. And I won't get into why. That'd be too long of a conversation. That's not even in that short story that I wrote, actually. But for some reason or another, there are almost no bards left in the world. And the fact that he is not only a bard, but perhaps the greatest, according to him, alive in the moment, gets him into a lot of strange adventures. And that's really what his series is about. And I bring along a really interesting cast of characters. A warlock named
Oh yeah.
Garo, uh, literally a half orc named Gronk. All these different really cool characters that are rather characters I played or really close people I've met through D&D along the way that have really touched my life, and me immortalizing their characters part of this group called the A Team that comes in. So I had a lot of fun writing that story, and what people don't know is I've written a lot more than just that in the background since I wrote that. And
It feels like the first chapter.
um, if I had to guess, I would say yeah, it's probably somewhere within the first couple chapters, yeah, of a book. But I've talked to Patty over at Fae Corps, and she wants it as a series. So I'm excited to say officially that I will be doing a whole I can't even talk today. Urban fantasy series about Seth the Bard, because you see a lot of these. You got some of my favorites are the Dresden Files. Harry Dresden's a wizard.
Oh yeah.
You've got Damien Vesic in the Vesic series by Eric Asher. He's a necromancer. You got all these different things, but not once has anyone ever really, well, with that type of urban fantasy, no one's done a bard. Bards are hard to do because of what they all and everything that they entail. So I'm really excited to do that, man. And also the Templeverse, yeah, the Temple series by Shane Silvers that's another big inspiration for me as well. But I'm really excited to do this one. I don't know when it's going to come out. I'm not in a rush for it. It's something that I'm kind of doing in the background in between other things, and when it gets done, Seth's gonna let me know when it's done, kind of a thing. And just to keep that rolling, I'm also dabbling in middle grade horror since I've already done children's picture books. My next thing to tackle age group wise is like Goosebumps, Fear Street sort of level of readers. So
Our interrupter is very much looking forward to that.
that's something I want to do as well. A really close friend of mine talked about yesterday. Is a teacher over in Nebraska, and she teaches middle-aged school children. So that's kind of one of my big drives. Then, of course, your children became a big inspiration for wanting to do this as well. So I don't know. That's going to be something that I'm going to start with just a short story first, and I'm going to have your little ones read it. I'm going to have the young ones in her class read it, kind of give me some feedback on what they
Okay.
think, because it's tricky because you cannot talk down to or insult a kid at that level, or they will literally
No.
just hate the story and not read it. So there's a lot of
All
balancing that you've got to do.
all Cassie asks is that you got that one kid somewhere who loves cartoons and loves to sketch things.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm definitely
Because
the
there
cartoon
has
kid.
to be that kid in there. A
Oh yeah,
cartoon loving sketching kid.
I'm good at that because I still love cartoons. I had a conversation the other day with Matt about how they really need to bring back Total Drama Island because for some reason I absolutely love that fucking show. I love that cartoon. I will watch it on repeat. I don't even care.
That's fine. I have cartoons that I watch on repeat as well.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
my number one though is definitely Bullwinkle.
I love
He is my
Bullwinkle.
favorite cartoon character of all time.
We've been redoing Spider-Man.
There's a lot of great Spider-Man cartoons out there. Spider-Man and X-Men cartoons. There's a lot of great ones of both.
So okay, we have reached an hour and 10 minutes. We should probably close out
Yeah,
because
yeah.
these shows aren't normally longer than an hour and 20.
Right.
I would like to thank everybody for coming. Hashtag replay if you watch later. Please
Yeah.
rewatch later. And definitely RastySlasher.com and Hell's Dungeon. And where else would you like to add?
Honestly, like I always tell everybody, just type Rasty Slasher into a search engine because all the lovely social medias that you know about and I don't, you've put me onto. So you might be talking to her actually, not me, if you message me on social media. But I'm also kind of dicking around with Snapchat right now, and I'm Rasty Slasher at Snapchat. So if you find me there, I'm terrible at it. I may not even ever send you a picture or a snap or whatever they call it. It may just be a message from me in a text form. But I'm messing around with that a little bit to see if I like it or not. So for a limited time, you can also catch me there.
I am not very good at Snapchat, so I'm definitely not doing that well. So either way, thank you all for coming. Please come find us at Fae Corps as well. And Friday with the library in the blue box. And I hope everybody has a wonderful night. Bye.
Spay and neuter your friends.
You cannot change